It only takes a moment for your eyes to meet, and then your heart knows in that moment you will never be alone again. He held me for an instant, but his arms felt sure and strong.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz singer Ashley Pezzotti. She opened up about her 2019 CD, We Have Only Just Begun, and she's doing that now. Born in Queens, New York, she discovered her love for music when her Dominican father would sing her classic Spanish songs to sleep. It became apparent that her fascination of music would continue to grow exponentially over time, and at the young age of 4, she began her musical journey by taking classical voice lessons. And her love of music and studying it continued at the Miami Charter Arts School. Capturing the hearts of audiences with her extensive repertoire of traditional jazz and bebop, she creates an atmosphere of excitement that will transport anyone to another place and another time, and that's good. So get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
Okay, Ashley, thank you for taking a minute from Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this.
My pleasure. Hey, so let's start off with your new CD, We Have Only Just Begun. Talk to me about this project. What was the vision for it?
The title track, at least, I definitely wanted to write a song that, wasn't about love. There are a lot of love songs on the record and out there in the world in general, but I really wanted to write a tune that was kind of about somebody who's just starting out and has all these possibilities in front of them, and there aren't really many tunes like that, and I felt like I could relate to a song like that, so I felt, why not write one?
Talk to me about your beginnings. You were born in Queens, and you discovered your love of music through your Dominican father. But give me an idea of kind of how it all began for you with singing music and early jazz albums.
In terms of music in general, I've started out since before I could talk. My parents always tell me I was always fascinated by singing, and that I would always repeat what I heard on the radio and sing along to it, and my mom tells the story about how when I was a baby, sometimes the only thing that would calm me down from crying is my dad playing the guitar. So very early on I was fascinated by it, and my parents took a notice to this and enrolled me in private voice lessons when I was 4 years old. And they actually had to, because the studio that I enrolled in, they had an age limit, and I believe that they didn't take kids younger than 8 or 9 years old. So my parents were like, just hear her, can we just bring her in so you can hear her? Like, she's gonna, I promise you, everything will be great. And they're like, okay, why not? Just bring her in. And then they accepted me at 4 years old to come study when I didn't know how to read or write or anything. So from there, it's been, I started off with classical and pop and R&B and musical theater. And I didn't really delve into jazz until I was in high school. I went to a performing arts high school. They kind of placed me into the jazz program, which was the top program at the school. They just kind of put me in 1 year. And I hadn't really known anything about jazz. As a young person, I kind of assumed it was elevator music, which is so bad to say. But at the time, I was just jazz, whatever. But then I heard Ella Fitzgerald for the first time, and I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? This is amazing. I was blown away, and I was I had to learn one of her transcriptions as an assignment for class, and I would just listen to it on repeat over and over, and I was just so blown away at how a person could do that. And I guess that's where I started out. When I started learning, I was intrigued by jazz, I guess.
So your style has been called reminiscent of Anita O'Day and June Christie. Were they big influences on you as well?
Oh, definitely. Anita O'Day, she's the queen of rhythm, and she's even said it in interviews herself that she never sings the song the same way twice. And I love that about her. And, she's fantastic. Her sense of rhythm and her sense of improv in the way that she tells the story. I just am fascinated by her.
The one thing about going to an art school is there's very few of them in this country that are dedicated to that. So that had to be a huge thrill for you and had to be a massive learning experience at such an early age.
Yeah, it definitely was. For me, because I come from a Spanish household, I was never really exposed to jazz. I was, I grew up listening to like salsa, merengue, bachata, and of course like pop and R&B, but I was never really exposed to any of the great jazz musicians. Like I wasn't even educated on what jazz was. I had no idea what it was. And being able to be exposed to that at a school at such a young age was definitely a great experience for somebody at that age.
So you had the chance to perform in front of millions of people with Keith Urban. You have been at Grammy parties. You've done a lot of things early on in your life, and now that you have a little bit of that road in your rearview mirror, what did those experiences do for you growth-wise? How did they really get you to a point where you see music in maybe a more mature way or a more seasoned way now?
Well, with the Keith Urban performance, it definitely, for me, in my career, was like a form of encouragement, I guess. It kind of, because I guess at that point I wasn't, I always knew I wanted to do music, but I wasn't, I guess, sure if I was good enough, I guess. So it was great to encourage me, like, this is something I really want to do. And performing for such a huge audience, you would think that someone at such a young age would be very nervous or very, like, scared to do that. But for me, it was very, like, thrilling. And I was like, I need to do this again. Like, when is the next one? Like, I was so excited, and it made me really want to pursue it more. I don't know. I guess that whole experience was just very encouraging for me.
So before I get into asking you about some of the legends and the veterans that you've been around and what you may have learned from them, I want to ask you, you got a full tuition scholarship to the University of Miami's Frost School. What did you learn in a formal environment? Because to me it seems as though you're the type that has learned so much by just going out and doing it. But being in a formal classroom, a collegiate atmosphere, what did you learn?
That's a good question. At the Frost School, it is a very formal environment. You're not only taking music classes, you're also like required to take certain math classes and English and psychology. I hate math, so that part sucked, but but I did enjoy the psychology courses. I learned a lot, and in terms of the music school, I definitely gained a lot of skill in terms of arranging and composing, because up until then I hadn't really been taught that subject. And the Frost School has a great arranging teacher, Gary Lindsay, who's been teaching there for years, and I learned so much from him, as well as from Martin Bejarano, who taught my composition class. And the way that he approached teaching composition it like opened my eyes and inspired me. Actually, a few of the songs on the record I wrote in his class. Early, I started writing it in his class and then tweaked it afterwards. But it was definitely very inspiring to be around great writers.
The one thing I always hear about, people that get a chance to be around legends and big shots in jazz is that there's so many things that happen that stick with you. And you've been able to be around the likes of, Kenny Barron, Branford Marsalis, Kevin Mahogany. There's been a lot of people that you've been around. What kind of aphorisms, so to speak, have they lodged in your head that you still remember to this day?
Well, I definitely remember Kevin Mahogany. I had a chance to learn from him through Young Arts, which is a fantastic program for young artists. And his impression that stuck with me was that he knew how to command the band. At the time when I was learning from him, I was in high school, so it was all still very new to me. But he took charge, and everything that he wanted the band to do, they followed with him. And at that time, I didn't really know how to do that, and it really stuck with me, the way that he was able to command the band and to be so confident on stage. So that's something that I definitely learned from him. And he was a fantastic singer, rest in peace. So it was a very, very awesome experience to be around him.
The people that listen to my show are obviously seeking jazz, and if they get to the point where they're listening to this interview and we're talking about your new album, it's your debut album, and you have to pitch this album, and you pitch it in such a way that you want them to come see you live if you swing through Kansas City. Tell me what you want the listener to get, not only from your debut album, but from what a live concert would be if they came to watch you live.
Interesting. Well, in terms of the album, there are a lot of, I think about half of the tunes are my original compositions, and I would describe them, I love the Great American Songbook, and I love jazz standards, I love bebop, I love the songs from that era. But those songs have been sung so many times, I really wanted to kind of write my own story, my own lyrics, my own experiences in that style. So a lot of the tunes on the record are my compositions that are reminiscent of that style of the Great American Songbook of the bebop era, and I tried to write stories that are personal to me and to my experiences, or to people that are very close to me, or their experiences that I've observed. And I definitely like to be personal in my storytelling and which songs I select. I like to select songs that the story captivates me and I'm able to relate to it on some level. And I also like to play with great musicians and being able to communicate with them and have conversations with them on stage via improvisation, which is an amazing experience for me as a singer.
I want to know from you, one thing about education is you learn it from being on stage, you learn it from the classroom, but you also learn it from seeing shows live. What was one of the first jazz shows you saw live that blew you away, that really inspired you?
Oh, good question. I remember that the first show I saw live was actually at the University of Miami. Back when I was in high school, I got a chance to see the New York Voices, and I was definitely blown away by them. And there was another show that definitely, I won't forget, was I got to see Cecile McLaurin-Salvant in Miami, and she was fantastic. Her ability to tell a story blew me away. And it was definitely a performance that left me feeling like wow, I was in awe.
Not to pigeonhole you into one genre, but I want to know, why do you love jazz?
I love jazz because it's all improvisation. Yes, for my compositions, there are things that are written out in terms of the arrangement, but once you tell the story, it's all improvised. And once you improvise over a solo, you're communicating with your band members in a way that you can't really do because I used to do pop and R&B before I ever discovered jazz. And while I did love performing that, there wasn't as much freedom, I guess, as this jazz genre allows. And it's very genuine. You're in the moment, just singing what you feel in that moment, and it just feels very freeing.
So everything's going to come down to this. This is my final question. Everyone has a perception or their interpretation of who they think you are as a person. Your family, your friends, your fans, but you know who you are best. So tell me, who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am?
Who do you think you are?
I don't know.
You made the mistake up front of saying you were trying to wake up, so this is a wake-up call.
Oh, man. I'm a lot of things. I'm a singer. I also, many people don't know this about me, but I like to fight. I do MMA and kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and kung fu. So that's something people don't know about me. I'm a dog lover. I love music. I also love to paint. I don't know. I'm a lot of things. I'm funny when I'm not half awake. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it did. And every single time this question is asked and answered, every answer is right. And sometimes brevity and getting to the point is the most profound way of getting to the heart of that. So thank you for taking some time out, opening up about the new album. Good luck with it, and hopefully we'll see you swing through Kansas City at some point.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to speak with you today, and thank you for taking the time. I really enjoyed it.
Likewise.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview. We give you a bit of insight into the finest singers in Queens, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Ashley for her music and her time. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
To be loved your whole life.
Neon Jazz.